Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Regan and this is Regan Writes. So if you've been on YouTube or on TikTok, you've probably come across the book-ish side of both of those platforms. So obviously if you're here, you've probably seen other people, content creators on YouTube who make content about books and about reading and stuff like that. And there's also the same kind of community on TikTok. Now on both of those platforms, there are kind of a set of books that are really popular, that kind of rotate and change, that people are talking a lot about. And so in this video, I kind of wanted to talk about which one of those books I'm interested in and which ones I have no interest in at all. Now, I know in the title it says I'm going to be doing 5 books that I want to read and 5 books that I don't want to read, but there is one extra book. So technically, it can kind of be included in this video, but at the same time, I've already bought it, and so I didn't want to include it in this list because I've already bought it. So it's not really a matter of like if I'm going to read it or not. It's I will read it because I've already bought it. So let's just start off with the books that I think I'm never going to read. I'm just not really that interested in. We're going to start off with They Both Die at the End. Now I don't really know much about this book other than I've read like a few reviews and people have said that it just wasn't that great. And so I'm not really that interested either. As far as I know, I think it's about an LGBT couple, like a gay couple, I think. Guessing by the title, it doesn't end happily. And I don't know, for me, I'm just trying to read, when it comes to LGBT content, I'm not trying to read much or consume much like LGBT media that has like toxic relationships or a story where like the title says like they both die at the end or one of them dies at the end, or like it has some kind of tragic ending or tragic twist or something horrible happens. Because for me personally, I grew up watching a lot of YouTube videos and like short films on YouTube and movies on Netflix, like indie type movies that focus on gay relationships, but typically they don't end well in a lot of those like short films and indie films. Typically it's like one of the characters gets bullied to death or like commits unalive, and it's like a really horrible situation, and it's just, they can't just be happy, you know? Which is why I loved Heartstopper so much, because I have read all of the Heartstopper books, and I might talk about that one day, but maybe in the future when the next and final installment comes out. Yeah, I don't want to read any more content about gay couples where it's like tragic. I've read enough, and I know that's kind of funny coming from somebody who just finished A Little Life, which has a very depressing gay relationship, but I didn't even know that that was in the book until I got to that part. And so I mean, I knew that there were gay people in the book, but I didn't know that that relationship was coming, and so that kind of hit me out of nowhere. So I can kind of, you know, that's a different situation. But either way, not that interested in it. I've heard it's not that great, it's a bit overhyped, so I'm not reading it. So next up we have We Were Liars, which I know nothing about. I've seen a few reviews on Booktok and online, just comment reviews, and I haven't really seen many people say that they loved the book. It's kind of funny actually, because there are a lot of books like that are popular on Booktok and that are on all of these lists that are like, oh, these are the top 10 most popular books on Booktok or on YouTube. And it's like, I look at the reviews and there's like maybe 1 or 2 people saying that it was alright or good, and then like the majority of people are being like, it's not that good, overhyped. And I feel like this is one of those books that even though there are a couple of people that say it's alright, the vast majority of reviews that I've seen haven't been great, and from what I know about the book, it just doesn't sound interesting to me, so I'm gonna skip that one, I think. Okay, so next up we don't have a like specific, okay, so this one might annoy some people, but and it might be a bit of a strong opinion, a strong take. I don't think it's necessarily an unpopular opinion, but I personally just don't want to read anything by J Maas. From what I know about her books, she mainly writes kind of like YA fantasy, like fantasy romance, and that's just, it's not really my thing. I've tried, as an adult, I've tried reading some YA stuff. The only thing I've enjoyed is Heartstopper. That's it when it comes to YA. And I think that's just because it kind of felt like the teenage years that I never got. And so it was like, in a way, and it was like really enjoyable, and it's just cute, you know? Like I could kind of get lost in it. Plus it's actually a comic rather than just a flat out book. I think if it was in just pure book novel format, I might not have liked it as much, but I don't know, probably because I did like the story. It wasn't just the comic aspect of it I enjoyed. But either way, when it comes to YA, I used to like it when I was a teenager. Like, I used to love John Green. I wanted to read all of his books at one point, but then as an adult, I think it was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I tried reading that and I got like a few pages and I was like, what? What is this? And I've tried reading some other YA stuff as well, and I can't. A lot of it's just, it comes across really cringy, and I don't know if it's like just the authors or if it's that kind of book. But Sarah J Maas comes across as, like, her books come across as very much the kind of book that I just wouldn't enjoy. And fantasy romance just doesn't do it for me. And like, you might think that's weird as somebody who not only reads quite a bit of fantasy but also writes fantasy. You'd think that I would enjoy that type of stuff, but I think I prefer fantasy when it's more about bigger stakes than just like a romance. And I understand that there's probably much more at stake in her books than just romance, and romance might even not be that big of a thing. I might be misled into believing that that's the case, but I don't know. I just don't see me enjoying her books. Like, I've seen reviews, I've seen people talk about, like, a lot of people talk about her books because they are so popular and a lot of people read them and a lot of people like them. But I think from most people, I kind of get the impression that people read them almost like comfort food, where it's like they enjoy it but they realize it's not the best writing. It's like, it's just kind of okay, it's just schlocky, and that's fine for some people, but her books, a lot of her books tend to be quite thick from what I've seen, and I can't invest that amount of time into reading massive long series that I'm just not that bothered about. So yeah, anything by Sarah J Maas, not that interested. Next up we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Kind of the same reason that I didn't want to read, or that I don't want to read anything by Sarah J Maas. It's kind of the same reason for why I don't want to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Now, I actually follow B. Schwab on Instagram, and so I see she posts a lot, so I see a lot of what she's doing and like all of her new stuff that's coming out, and she seems like a nice person. I haven't actually read any of her stuff, so I'm not judging The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue on any of her other work, but Addie LaRue kind of gets either really good reviews or kind of really bad reviews, like people crap on it a little bit, and then there are also some reviews that are just like, it's whatever, it's overhyped. And I get the impression that I would probably find it a little bit cringy or a little bit not really up my street. I think I've seen enough reviews on it and enough opinions and people talking about it to kind of make up my own mind that I'm not that bothered about reading it, so yeah. And then the last one on the list of popular Booktok books that I'm probably not going to read is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, I have actually read some books by Holly Black. She wrote the Spiderwick Chronicles, which I actually read, I think, earlier this year, at the start of the year in like springtime, because I used to love the movie as a kid. I mean, I think I've already mentioned this, but I used to be obsessed with like mythological creatures and myths and legends in general, and the Spiderwick Chronicles have a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of like fairies and mythological creatures, and it's like urban fantasy. So I really enjoyed the film as a child, and I just read the books, like I say, and I really enjoyed them. They were actually a little bit darker than what I was expecting them to be, and I was surprised by how different they were from the film, because the film only follows, actually I can't remember, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in the books that doesn't happen in the film, because I think there are about 5 books, and they're only short books. I read each one over like a couple of days. Yeah, I enjoyed that series, but The Cruel Prince, from what I've heard, again, it seems like it's more romance based, and like, I don't have anything against romance, it's just not my cup of tea typically. And again, I think it's meant to be sort of like fantasy romance, and it just doesn't do it for me. Fantasy romance, if anybody ever recommends me any books, just let it not be that, because I'm probably not going to read it. I do want to read more romance. There are a few romance books. I don't know if there's any on this list. I think there might be a couple. But there are romance books that I do want to read that are popular at the minute. And I don't have anything against that genre. I think it's just specifically like YA fantasy romance doesn't really rub me the right way. It's not my cup of tea. So those are all of the books that I probably won't ever read that are popular on Booktok. So next, let's get into the books that I will read / want to read. So first on this list, I've got The Song of Achilles. Now, I have tried reading Cersei by the same author. I think her name's Madeline Miller. I have tried to read Cersei, and I only got about maybe like a fifth or a third of the way into it, and then I put it down because there was other stuff that I wanted to read. But I've heard a lot of good things about The Song of Achilles, and I know it's supposed to be like kind of a sad, and I'm kind of contradicting myself with this one because I've heard that it is like a tragic gay romance, and so but I think the thing is, the difference is with this one, it's more like historical fantasy romance, which I've also said that I don't want to read. I'm really like just flying in the face of everything that I just said. But either way, I do want to read this one because I've just heard a lot of good stuff about it, and I don't know, maybe I'll enjoy it. So yeah, The Song of Achilles, I'm interested in reading that, so I'm probably going to read it one day. Dust! Next up, I'm actually going to say Cersei because, like I say, I have already got the book. I tried to read it and I just put it down and never picked it back up. And I do want to read it. And Cersei is like another book that's quite popular on Booktok. Maybe not so much now. I don't really see people talking about it much at the minute. But back when I bought it and tried to read it, everyone was talking about it. Or like a lot of people were talking about it. I enjoyed it. I think it was hard to get into because it's very strange. Like, it's very different from a lot of stuff that I've read. Because it's like, it's almost like fantasy mixed with historical fiction, and it's just written in a strange way. It's not like anything I've ever read before, so I do want to give that another go. And next up we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is another one that I feel like you can't go anywhere on Booktok or Booktube and not hear somebody talking about this book. I feel like everybody and their grandmother has read this book apart from me. Even people in my personal life have read it and told me it's amazing, or I know that they thought it was really good. And so I feel like it's just time that I need to bite the bullet. I think I might actually read this in December because I've got another book coming that I think, another like Booktok book that I'll talk about in a bit, that I'm going to be reading in November. So I think I might read that one, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, in December. I've just heard it's really good. Every single person that I watch on Booktube, like I say, has given it like rave reviews. Everyone says how amazing it is. So I'm like, you know what, I might as well read it. I just realized that my posture during that entire segment was like horrific. Anyways, so next up again is kind of a cheat. It's actually 2 books, but it's by the same author. I could have done the same thing for Madeline Miller, but either way. This whole thing's just devolved into a mess, so I'm just gonna do this. So this one, like I say, is actually 2 books, and it's Ugly Love and It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover is an author who you cannot escape her name. When you're on Booktok or Booktube, you will hear her name. You will see reviews by people for her books. From what I know and what I see, she seems like quite a prolific author. She writes a lot of books, and I think most people tend to have quite a mixed reaction to her books. Some people really love her books, some people really hate them, some people are like in the middle. They tend to be quite divisive, and she has a lot of like hits and a lot of misses. And so I'm interested. Like, she doesn't write the kinds of books that I would typically go for, but there's so many people talking about her books that I'm like, I don't want to miss out, you know? I want to see what everyone's talking about. So I think I'm going to read Ugly Love and It Ends With Us when I do get around to reading some of her books, because they're like the most popular ones that I hear about at the minute. Next up we have The Secret History by Donna Tartt, I think. I see this book show up on every like dark academia aesthetic video. Like, it just it's kind of like that book that is always involved in any kind of aesthetic dark academia post on Instagram, on Booktok, on Booktube, everywhere. You will see that book if you look for like dark academia aesthetics. And so I kind of like that vibe. I haven't read much when it comes to like dark academia stuff. I don't know much about the book apart from the fact that it's in like an academic setting, and I think there's some kind of mystery or something. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, this is another one of those books that I've just heard a lot about and a lot of people talk about. I've also seen that some people don't really like this book or say that it's really overhyped, or they just didn't get it or didn't get the hype. And it does sound like something that I wouldn't normally read or really pick up, but because so many people have talked about it and because I'm interested enough in giving it a go, I think I am going to give it a go. And on to the last book, and this is kind of like an extra one. This is the one that I mentioned at the start, that I've already bought the book and I already intend on reading it, I think next month, and that is Red, White and Royal Blue. And the reason that I bought the book, I was kind of iffy on whether I wanted to read it or not. In fact, I was iffy on whether or not I was even going to put it on this list in the first place, and I ended up taking it off, which is why it's an extra one, because I did end up buying the book. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the main reason that I bought the book is because I was like scrolling through the Waterstones app, and Waterstones is like a bookstore, popular bookstore in the UK, if you don't know, and I was scrolling through and I saw that there was a new copy of Red, White and Royal Blue coming out, and it was a signed edition, so I'm actually trying to collect some more signed editions of books. It's just fun. That's literally the only reason that I want to buy more signed copies of books. I just find it fun. I guess it's like people collecting coins and shit. It's just one of those things I like collecting. I say I collect them. I've only got like 2 signed books. This will be the 3rd. But I do want to start getting more signed books. And because I saw that there was a new cover coming out or a new edition coming out, I think it's got a little bit of extra stuff in there as well, and it was signed, I was like, you know what, I'll get it, I'll treat myself. So yeah, I think that's the whole list. There are a lot of other Booktok books that I've seen mentioned that are a bit less talked about that I do want to read, like Convenience Store Woman and what's the other one called? Let me just have a look. There we go. So the other one that I wanted to read was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. That's another one that I've kind of heard talked about on Booktok and Booktube. There's like 50 other books that I could probably have mentioned, but those are the ones that I think are the most popular and the most talked about. So I wanted to kind of talk about those ones rather than lesser known ones. I might even do a video where I talk about more lesser known Booktok books in the future, but for now, that's it. Those are all of the books that I will/want to read, and all of the books that I most likely will never read. So if the lighting just changed, it just got really sunny out of nowhere. But yeah, I'm gonna end this video here anyway, guys. So I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please leave a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!